love Moho. Moho's brilliant. I flippin' love it. And I'm going to try and convince you why I love it so much. So let me just. I've been thinking, which is like a long time. I started using it in college, and like that was ages ago. I made my own short films in it, and it's just brilliant. This is what my stuff looks like for all coming fresh to it. I'll turn it down so you can hear me talk. All of my stuff's pretty character led, very dialogue heavy. I'm really into lip sync character stuff. Do a lot of work for web, TV, film. I'm making a game called Plaything. I'm making a feature film with the main character in it is all animated in Moho. So it really is just such an important part of my process, Moho. I just totally love it. The most recent film I made is called Betty. I'm just going to show you a little clip of that. Just talking over it. Betty is kind of entirely really made in Moho. You can see the rigs here. All the rigs in the film are actually like it. All the rigs are actually in the film. I'm really into like films that are about the process. I think animation is such a process heavy thing. It's so time consuming, and I like it when films kind of don't try and hide that with animation. And that's what I've tried to do with Betty. The films, it's weird. It's a bit like watching an animated film with the director's commentary left on. So I'm the director, obviously, so I'm talking over it, you know, and it's about Bobby, this little character who he loves butter and he loves Betty. This is Betty over here. But unfortunately, Betty goes away and his love kind of melts away like the butter. So in the film, you kind of join him. He's an extension of me, really. You join him on his journey and see what, you know, to try and get his butter back in his life. There's as I said, I'm really into process. I'm really into the sort of behind the scenes of animation. So I really tried to get that into this film. So I thought what would be interesting would be to try and rig Bobby for this webinar and show you my process and how I would go about sticking something like that together. Again, because I'm so into it being fast and quick, I'm hoping to just blast through it and yeah, show some interesting rigging techniques that I would use, and then show some maybe behind the scenes Moho files as I'm getting through it. So, without further ado, I would start with designing a character. I used to do my designs in Moho and draw in Moho, but I've actually stopped doing that now. And I actually use Affinity Designer, which is great, but I used to use Illustrator, and it's just, there's nothing wrong with Moho's tools at all. This is the way that I sort of tend to work, is I design it in another program, and then I bring it in as an SVG file. So this is an SVG file here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to just jump in, and hopefully it all works. So what I would start with is by importing an SVG, and I'd probably scale it up, will there? Yep. And look, already we're in. So it's all vector, which is cool. Moho has bitmap stuff now, but you know, it's kind of a vector-based program as well. So I get all these shapes in really easily, really quickly. Unfortunately, SVGs they don't save layers, or I don't think they save layers. So you got to do a bit of jiggery pokery to split it up. But there is a useful script actually in layer effects, break apart shapes. Let's have a look here. Put each shape in its own layer. And what that'll do is it'll put them all in a folder and it'll split it all up. So this bit is a little bit boring, but that's the body. But I've got other Moho files that I can jump into if it's taking too long. I'm just wanting to show you kind of how quickly I could get a rig working. That's his heart. That's his leg. That's leg left. That's leg right. Moho is really good with Photoshop files and Illustrator files, and they'll keep your like layer order stuff intact. And I do end up using them a lot for commercial work. Say if like it's more illustrative stuff, I would make it in Photoshop. But for me and the way I make work, I'd like to keep it like really simple. I like just using the vector shapes and getting them in, and I kind of don't mind going through and doing a bit of layer rejigging. You can think about the day. You can kind of like relax into it. So in a few like minutes, I've kind of got all those vector layers in here. Let's call this Bobby. All those vector layers in there, and we're kind of ready to sort of start sticking it together. Now, looking at the design, I kind of like that. I mean, it's different for every design, but I kind of like that the mouth and the pupil were kind of connected. I think the eye should be able to like rotate on its own, but I just thought that was quite a pleasing design. So it kind of made me think, oh, how would I do that? How would I do that in this program? And I hate masking, and like I do a lot of compositing in After Effects, and I used to do a lot of animating in After Effects, but I really dislike doing it, and I just love how fast Moho is. And a great thing about Moho is its masking like capabilities. So if you can see here, where are we? This sort of pupil is actually a bigger circle, but it's masked. And in here, we can do that really easily in Moho. I'm going to show that. So it's like, let's call it eye pool, will we? And all you need to do is just check on masking, and then look, it's masked. And there's a few other settings you can mess around with if you don't mask that back layer. Already, really quickly, I've got, where are we? I've got this shape, and it's masking. And I would have had to have done that in post. That would have been a nightmare. Just totally love it. The other great thing is obviously in Moho, a lot of the time, what's that in there? Let's hide that. You're working with switches a lot. So particularly if I'm so into dialogue and things like that, you're working with switch layers. So Moho's great with those. And what I like about it is that you can kind of be creative with it, because I've just made a copy actually of this. I'm going to make this a half closed eye really quickly. Let's have a look here. So I'm going to be really rough here, but just so you get the idea. So, and I'm going to, while I'm here, I'm just going to pull that down a little bit. So this is like let's call that a blink. It's super rough, but you get the idea. Basically, I've just made a little blink thing. And what you can do is when you make a switch layer, so let's call this eyes, you can actually switch like entire groups. So I've made a little switch layer for a blink, and it's just like, it just works, man. It's so flipping brilliant. Again, with like just making things as quickly as humanly possible, I tend to make actions for things like that. So I would call like a blink 1, and I'd assign it to a shortcut key. I'm going to assign it to 1 here, and then we've just made that. So I would go forward a couple of frames and then add a full one here. It's going to play back in a loop here. Made a little loop there. And then I would actually go ahead and make a closed eye, maybe. Spell it right, well. And I'm going to assign that to number 2. And then I would just sort of close it there. So that's going to switch to that. And then I make another one with like a open eye. I would set that to 3. I am doing this for a reason, by the way. I'm doing this because I just want to show how quickly you can start animating, really. So now I've got all these saved as an action. Now, this is so cool, man. Now I can press play on the timeline, and I can press 1, and it'll blink. Press 2, and it'll shut his eye. 3, it'll open. 1, it'll blink. And when you stop the playhead, you see it's recorded all the actions. That's just totally rad, in my humble opinion. I do this with like all my characters. I'll animate, I'll just throw it down. I'll literally have my audio in here, and I'll go through and I'll do the blinks in a one pass. You can still go in and drag things around and change them. You could even go in to the actions and change them, after, and it'll update back here. See, look, they're longer now. Totally brilliant. I just flipping love it, man. I'm going to jump forward a wee bit actually, because I don't want to run out of time just showing you some eyes. So let's not do that and bring up another mobile file. So half rigged. The only thing I've done to this is exactly the same. Is I've just made all the mouths. So you can see all his mouths here. Let's pull this down so you can have a look. These are called phonemes. So like you've got when there's an L, you've got a little tongue sticking out. E's, the mouth sort of stretches out in this style. T's and all that, you'll see your teeth. F, you probably bite your bottom lip. You use an F. Basically, I've just went through and made a switch layer of all the different mouths that I want to use with my characters. And these are like, again, it's quite, it takes a wee bit of time, but again, I would actually draw these in another program like Affinity Designer and then bring them in here. If that makes sense. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start rigging them, and I'll show you how quickly we can do that. So this is exactly how I would do it. I'd set a bone here in his pelvis. You press once, you get a target bone. And I'd add a couple there. We want one for, remember we want his eye and his mouth to maybe be linked. So I'm gonna have that there. If you click on a bone and select it, it'll go red. And then you place another one. What it does is it uses that as the hierarchy, which is quite good to know. So what I'll actually do here is turn down the opacity just so I can see a little clearer. So I've got the pelvis here. I want the arms to connect there. So let's make one here. And what you do, you tell the software you just give it a little bit of an angle. So I've given a tiny little bit of an angle here, and it'll just say, because we're going to make a controller here that's will do a thing. We'll move this inversely. That's called inverse kinematics. But because there's a slight angle here, it's going to tell the computer that that's the way that it wants to bend. So that's that. I often like copy pasting the exact same bone so I can kind of get the exact same deformation. Again, really not difficult to do. When you do that, it loses the the parenting a little bit there. So to reset that, you hit Alt on your bone and click on the bone that you want it to go. Now that'll follow there. We're nearly there. Now the legs are red, so I'm not going to be able to see the bones. So I'm going to turn down the opacity. Why? Just so we see what we're doing. Now, I'm going to hit up this guy, going to give it a tiny little bit of an angle here, and then one there. And I'll do the same as what I did before. Here, whack over there. So, you can see, hit Alt and then click there. So we're like, you know, I don't even know how long we're in. What, like 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and we've already kind of got your skeleton in place. This is just the way I like to. That's the way I like to do it. I've been working with Blender quite a bit recently, and I totally love it. It's just often I'll choose this method over a quite involved software like Blender just for speed. Like often there isn't time, you know, if you're doing a commercial thing and you just have to get it out, you just have to work quickly, and that's why I would choose Moho to do that. So what I'm doing here quickly is I'm binding each of these to each layer, and it's quite simple to do it. So I've got arm left here. I've selected the bones I want to bind, and then there's use selected bones for flexi binding. That's then bound. There's also another create smooth joint thing here I quite like to use. It just gives a really straight edge. I think it's quite good for Photoshop files and bitmap files. You can ask the guys. But yeah, it's just gives the deformation that I kind of want. Arm right here, I'm gonna make a flexi bind it. It's Command Shift F. That'll do it for you. You don't have to go into the menu. Where's it? Smooth joint. So yeah, we're getting there. Not far now. I'm gonna start moving them. So select that, leg left, Command Shift F. I'm gonna select these, and then I'm gonna go leg right, Command Shift F. And was that I needed to bind? This is a bind bone, so there's no deformation there, but it'll just stick it to it there. The eye, and I think I want the same for the hat. So if we select all of them, I'll just put the weight down a little bit there. You see, we're sort of, oh, like, ooh, what's happening here? We've got the heart's getting deformed. I'm just going to quickly fix that. Where are we? I'm just going to bind it to, where is it? I'm just going to bind it to the pelvis. All hearts should be bound to pelvises. Anyway, so you can see really quickly, kind of got this like character coming to life. What I do next is, it's kind of why I have these here. These aren't actually going to be rendered. I often make these just as guides, just telling the software to not render it when it renders out. I'm going to make little controllers here that's going to help us as like animators, because like before, like I've got my, where is it? I've got my eye here that I can spin around on the, you know, the layer properties, which is very nice. But as an animator, you're not really going to want to, well, personally, I think if you hand this to an animator, you almost don't want them to open up the stack. You just want them to have everything at their disposal here so that they can make the best performance they can. So I use things like smart bones and targets to kind of, yeah, help us out, speed things up. I'm all about speed. So let's do the IK and I'll show you how you do that. I just make a few target bones. So it's like target 1, let's call it. And then let's go target 2, target 2, target 3. Sorry for this, guys. It's like the most boring bit. And target 4. Well, I'm hoping that you're here to see how, you know, how you make things, you know. So to make this target that, you go up to bone constraints, and then you just pick, that was target 1. This one's target 2. This one, it's the bone before, you know, the one that you want the inverse kinematics on. Target 3, and the bone before that, target 4. So now when we move these bones, actually they don't need any weight on them. Don't need any weight on these ones. We'll just pull that down, pull it back up. So now we've got nice little controllers for grabbing the legs and arms and all that. Just do a quick test here. My work is kind of like, I think it's not very cartoony. I mean, it looks cartoony, but it's often quite like the walk cycles are quite straight, and you know, it's not. I don't really do these bouncy things, but you can make them like that. I sometimes turn this on and off. There's like a IK stretching thing here, and then you can see. Let me just put it on all of them, just so I can show you how I do that. So now we've got like stretchy limbs, man. And then these legs all happening, man. Let's turn over to. I'm just going to turn the opacity up so you know what we're looking at. There we go, 100. Another cool thing is, I love this. It's like auto keying or something. You can like move it around and then it'll just record it, man. You know why his leg's up there. Take that away. Take that away. So you can see, like, in no time at all, you know, I started this file without, there's no rigging in it, and now we're, you know, 10 minutes later, we're already animating. And like we did that, oh, I haven't recorded that action, but yeah, I would throw in an action like, I don't know. Will I make an action? Yeah, I'll make an action quickly. Make an action quickly. I'm on a roll. I'm not scared. I'm scared of anyone today. You can right click on you hold Alt and Command up on the viewport, and like you can set your keyframes, which is totally rad. Like, again, really useful for animators, that I think. There are other, so I've made that action now, so if we hit play and press with 1, let's do it. 1, we've got, I'll set all those in there. Let's have a look. How quick it is. There's other ways that you can view these switches, which is like, there's a switch selection. Shows all the eyes here that I prepared this file a little more than the very first one. Same with the mouth. Got all these different mouths here. Again, really good for animators, because I suppose you might hand it over to animator and they might not know the characters, you know, what the characters' little quirks are, you know. So this way they can see that really easily. What I'm going to do is show you some smartphone stuff, because they're rad. It's a big feature in Moho, and without it, I'd just be really upset. So just love it. Let me show you